Hi guys, I wanted to come on here and share what it's like coming off prednisone and withdrawal symptoms, because that is something I had experienced very heavily recently, and I just want to share a little more about it and just bring some awareness to taking prednisone. Now, obviously, everybody is different when taking certain medications, and just because it happened to me does not mean it's going to happen to you. But yeah, I'm just going to share a little bit about my experience with prednisone, with my disease of having ulcerative colitis, and a pattern that I noticed. So, I had always been apprehensive about taking prednisone because I was aware of the side effects, and I had a friend who had taken it, and she warned me about the side effects. But having ulcerative colitis, you have a lot of inflammation in your colon, and sometimes when you start a medication for that disease, you need to bridge the gap until that medicine kicks in. So what can help bridge that gap is prednisone. And part of me is glad that drug exists because it is something that allowed me to not suffer all the time, but it also, it's hard to explain. I feel like because I was on prednisone for so long, I was on it for 9 months, and there'd be times where I try to taper, and then because we thought my symptoms were getting better from taking the other drug, and then as soon as I come off prednisone, my symptoms worsened even worse than they did before. And this was a cycle. So then we'd have to switch the medication I was on. So for example, with ulcerative colitis, one medicine I was on was mercaptopurine. Well, when that started to work, I tapered from pred, things got worse. That medicine no longer felt like it was working. Then I moved on to, I think, Entyvio, and after my first dose of Entyvio, my symptoms were almost gone. It was like magic. And I was still on prednisone. As I came off prednisone, my symptoms came back full force. The next 3 doses of Entyvio did absolutely nothing for me. And so the theory is that, prednisone was doing all the work, not that medication. But what is weird is that I was on prednisone this entire time, and I always had symptoms. So I knew that other medication was working, but I feel like your body is so used to being on prednisone that when you come off of it, it's like a shock to your body. And that's why it's really important to come off prednisone really slow. Now, these are just my theories about it. I feel like your body's dependency on prednisone prevents other medicine from working to its fullest ability. Now, a lot of people are probably going to disagree with that because I do see that the people have successful stories of coming off prednisone and other medications doing the work. It also could be the fact that I had a doctor that wasn't that great at weaning me off prednisone or giving other medications enough time, or just, I don't know. But I find this to be a common pattern in people I've talked to with IBD. Anyway, but mainly, I was on prednisone for 9 months. It was the only thing that was keeping me afloat. I still had symptoms, but it took the edge off. But at one point, that prednisone no longer was serving me, and it was almost didn't even matter how much I was, what dose I was on, it just wasn't working anymore. And I think because, every time you taper down, you have to go back up, and it's your body just, I don't know, it just gets used to being on it, I guess. And you can develop steroid refractory or something like that, where again your body no longer responds to the steroid. So anyway, after 9 months of being on prednisone, I was on 30 to 40 milligrams. That was 30 milligrams was probably the highest dose I was on outside of the hospital, but when I got into the hospital, they did put me on, I think, 60. I don't really quite remember. I was on a pretty high dose. And when I was on about 30 milligrams, I had definitely symptoms of being on it, psychological symptoms. I felt that I was very anxious and energized, and definitely did increase my appetite. yeah, I just felt like really like energy. Even though I was really tired, it just like gave me more energy. And I just felt like my anxiety was even worse. And I was just like, I felt like really like moody, and like my moods fluctuate like really easily, like especially when I was on it at first. My body, I feel like, adjusted to it over time, and maybe I just felt like that was my new normal, which is not good. And so then in the hospital, I started to taper off, and they're like, okay, we need to go slow, but they kind of did it quickly at first because I had to go into surgery, and it's not good to be on a high dose of prednisone when you're going into surgery because, you know, it increases risk for infection since it suppresses your immune system. And prednisone is one of those immunosuppressants that suppresses all the inflammation in your entire body. So it doesn't just like it's not like reducing a specific spot in your body. It's like your entire immune system is suppressed. So anyway, so coming off it quickly was feeling really intense. I felt like serious withdrawal symptoms. I felt shaky. Like that was the number one thing. My anxiety was so bad, and again, obviously I was in the hospital going through a lot, so my emotions were already all over the place, but I definitely feel like every time they reduced the dose of the prednisone, I started to like tweak out, and I hated it. Also being on prednisone makes you like more awake. But anyway, so yeah. And as I was coming off of it, like, people said you're going to start to get really tired and stuff, but I feel like I wasn't really experiencing that yet. I was already tired, not feeling well, whatever. I still felt like anxious and awake. I was also in the hospital, and they wake you up all the time. So anyway, another big symptom that I started experiencing was my entire skin shedded off. Like, from head to toe, I peeled like a snake. It was disgusting. And it lasted for weeks. My skin was so dry, and it was like, yeah, just super flaky and dry, and nothing helped. Like, you pretty much just had to wait till it's over. I just exfoliated and used lotion. And then, you know, I kept going down on it, obviously. Like, every 7 days, we tapered by 5. And they wanted me to stop at 10, but I went till 5 milligrams because I felt like that was too much of a jump. And I would also get really bad headaches, and like, they're really bad headaches. Every time I tapered a dose, I would get a headache, and then it would kind of like ease out until my next taper. But once I hit like 15 to 10 milligrams, my headaches became so severe. It just felt like it was just really bad. And with ulcerative colitis, you cannot have Advil. It can cause like more bleeding, I guess, or internal bleeding, and you're already kind of bleeding internally, so you don't want that. So you can take Tylenol, and for me, Tylenol just does not work as well as Advil, but it was my only option. And I was taking Tylenol like every 4 to 6 hours. Nothing would take this headache away, and it would only take the edge off. It really sucked, and I would try to stay hydrated, everything. It did not go away. But after about a month and a half, it like faded away. Thank God. It felt like it was going to last forever. And one other thing about being on prednisone, I noticed at a high dose, my vision was so blurry. Like, and I noticed my teeth were sensitive. I don't know. A lot of different symptoms. But definitely coming off of it, like, again, just like going on it, it like messes with you psychologically. And my skin was really dry and like red and just irritated easily. So anyway, that is my experience with prednisone. If I can help it, I don't ever want to go back on it. Just the thought of it makes me sick to my stomach. And I just wanted to bring it up because I think this is a common theme with people with IBD, and I just wanted to share my experience with it. Also, one last thing coming off of it, my hair has been shedding a lot, hence I have all these little pieces of frizzies.